Sports anime has a problem with their villains. It's not that they're worse than great villains like Meruem from Hunter x Hunter, Griffith from Berserk, or Ryuga from but it's actually that they're better, so good that you deadass root for them over the protagonist. And no villain proves that better than Desarm from Inazuma 11. So I'm going to show you why he is undeniably the greatest villain in sports anime by walking through 4 of the best games of the season, one of which is a borderline war crime. And we get a scene that I genuinely believe has some of the best writing I have ever seen in any anime. And it all starts with this boy Endo, who's put together a team of amateurs to compete for the football frontier, where they reach the finals and play against actual gods. But it turns out they're not actual gods, just kids that are doping. And after Raimon win, their school gets attacked by aliens. These kids just can't catch a break. In fact, Gemini Storm go on to destroy every school in Japan until Raimon finally stopped them. And that's when we're introduced to an even stronger team, Epsilon. And their captain is just the GOAT. And that's what brings us to Kyoto, one of the most naturally beautiful and serene locations in all of Japan. Look, I've got no idea why they're just chilling in a tree. I don't even know how they got up there, because despite all the wild stuff that happens in this show, the power of flight isn't one of them. And no, before you comment it, God knows doesn't count. Now naturally, Raimon are drawn to wherever aliens attack like a moth to a flame, so they travel to a school called Cloister, who are straight up vibing despite the literal terrorist attack that just happened. In fact, Fubuki even manages to riz up 2 girls, which makes it pretty clear why he's always at the top of the popularity polls. But these 2 girls let Raimon know where to go, and they soon have a chat with the Cloister divinity kids. And I say kids loosely, because look at this. How many of these grown-ass men do you seriously believe pass as middle schoolers? But that's neither here nor there, because Raimon offer Cloister their help in fighting Epsilon, but Cloister straight up refused to fight, saying that they're going to make peace with the aliens. I'm gonna be honest, that's actually incredibly noble. I wonder why no one else has tried this. Oh yeah, that's probably why. Naturally, Cloister can't just sit back and allow their school to be destroyed, so they play against Epsilon, and it turns out they're actually really good. It's no wonder people say they would have won the football frontier if they took part, because their technical ability is something else. This literal child is putting prime Neymar to shame. Hell, even Bachira can't do half of this shit. This team would have slapped up Gemini Storm no problem, and they might actually be able to go toe-to-toe with... Well, we all know what's about to happen next, so I'll do you guys a favor and save you having to see this generational ass whooping. And do you know what's crazy about this? It's only been 6 minutes. That's downright more than a goal every 2 minutes. Do you know how insane that is? And obviously this means Raimon are going to take their place. But there's a little issue. They've only got 10 players because Megane hurt his ankle. And you might be asking how that happened. Maybe it was during their last match against Gemini Storm where we got to see this demon cook an entire team of aliens single-handedly. Nope, it was because of this. Now, I can understand if you're a little confused about this scene, but the reason I'm showing this to you now is because it leads to what I genuinely believe is the greatest scene in all of Season 2. And it all starts with this kid, Kogure. He ends up pranking Raimon, which results in Megane being injured and Toko ending up in a ditch. Now, I have absolutely no idea how this kid managed to dig a hole this big and then cover it up in record time, and somehow knew she would jump after him in that exact spot. But then again, this is also a show with 2 people living inside the same person. But I'll explain that one later. But for now, the reason I bring up Kogure is because he's kind of an outcast from his team. He's always thought they were out to get him and would pick fights with everyone. So naturally they started to punish him with chores to discipline him, and that only made him think they were out to get him even more. And the reason for this psychological cycle of horror is because he was abandoned by his parents. Now I promise I'm going to get to the next match in a few minutes, but this story is actually kind of crazy because his mother took him out on a trip when he was little and told him to watch their bags. And then she just left him there. Dog, I hate this kid, but look at these pictures and tell me your heart doesn't squeeze for him. And that basically gave him PTSD from losing his parents. Did you see that? Did you see that? Do you know who else lost their parents? Haruna. And this is something Kiddo immediately picks up on. And let's not forget the fact that they were his parents too. So naturally, he was also reminded of their death, and yet he first looks to Haruna to make sure she's okay. And it's actually this relationship that ends up resulting in what is the best scene of the season. And that begins with Haruna watching Kogure doing his chores, and yeah, this is pretty obviously that whole shtick of the wax on, wax off thing from Karate Kid, except in that movie there was actually logic to it. Please explain to me how he's cleaning the damn ceiling by kicking cleaning rags and having them magically glide across the beams. You know what? I don't even care. The thing you need to remember here is that Haruna isn't the only one who ends up watching Kogure train, and she suggests that Kogure should be Raimon's 11th member. And I love how they've animated everyone's reactions here, especially Toko's. Invincible should really take notes. But the problem is that Kogure is pretty scared, and I won't lie, I can't blame him. Picture this. You've just been called up to play for the best team in the country, which at the time of this recording happens to be my favorite team, Liverpool. Now imagine that you have to play against literal aliens with the power to destroy buildings with a single kick of a ball. Don't pretend that you would not be shitting bricks too. But fortunately, Haruna gives him the motivation he needs in the most perfect way possible.
大丈夫よ、小暮くんなら。私信じてるから。
This scene here is a literal chef's kiss. From the music to Haruna's choice of words to even the fact that every character is drawn to look confused as hell because they clearly do not trust this little menace. But Haruna does, and she's not trying to hype him up. She's not hoping for a miracle. She's just telling him the truth, that she believes in him. She's not pretending everyone else does, because they don't. And that wouldn't work on a kid like Kogure anyway, who would see right through that lie. She's telling him that she stands with him, even if nobody else does, because that's all he needs. That's all he's never gotten. Just one person that puts their faith in him. And I absolutely adore this scene, and I genuinely think it's better than the match itself, which we're about to see. But this isn't the scene that I was talking about. You'll have to wait a little longer for that, because right now it's time for Raimon versus Alias Academy's top ranked team, Epsilon. And that starts with my favorite thing in the whole world. Shit talk. You see, in my previous video, Turnip Head was the king of shit talk when Raimon played Gemini Storm, but Desarm might deadass be an even bigger menace.
その実力をたたえ、3分で決着とする。
And obviously we've got my GOAT, Chester Horse Jr. commentating. And I'm just as surprised as anyone else as to how he's traveled halfway across the country to be able to commentate a game he didn't even know was taking place. But that's exactly why he's so high up on my Inazuma 11 tier list, which you can check out on my Patreon. In fact, I usually have to edit my videos down a lot to avoid copyright. So from now on, I'm going to be uploading the full-length extended versions of each video over on Patreon too. But for now, let's focus on the game where Raimon kick us off, and actually, you know what? No, because I'm sorry, but I just have to show you this scene. How the hell does this kid have the government names of literal aliens? Actually, here's a better question. Why are Epsilon marking 2 to 1? Look, I understand that I shouldn't be picking apart the logic in a show where kids just chill on trees after terrorizing whole cities, but this deadass means Raimon would have 9 players unmarked compared to Epsilon's 7. And despite that, this so-called genius playmaker decides to pass to the one player that's thoroughly marked. But you know what? That's okay, because Fubuki is him and jumps off the back of these two bewildered gentlemen before unleashing his eternal blizzard. Now, for those of you that don't know, this move is, no pun intended, one of the coldest shooting moves in the entire show. It's up there with God Knows and was powerful enough to literally freeze God Hand and the entire net. And the net is basically the strongest character in Inazuma 11. So naturally Desarm catches it with just one arm. But there's more to it than just a simple catch. Now you might be wondering what's so important about this line, and oh, my sweet summer child. You're going to have to wait and see, because we're not only going to talk about one of the best villains in sports anime, but we're also setting up the greatest rivalry in anime. But before that, we get to see this guy perform a literal Kamehameha, and Endo counters with Blazing Knuckle. No! If you don't understand why I'm so disappointed, let me try and explain it in a way even your grandma would be able to understand. With Pokemon, imagine you're Ash Ketchum and this is your team. You know, you've got your most trusted Pikachu, but also your heavy hitters like Greninja, Charizard, Gengar, and Dragonite. And you're out in the wild and come across Mewtwo itself. So what do? You throw out Jigglypuff. That's what this is. One day I'm going to see this kid actually choose the correct move, and it will be the greatest day of my life. But it's not the end of the world, because they're only down by 1 goal and their attack should have more than enough firepower to give them a fighting chance. So you might be thinking this is like Gemini Storm all over again. But no, because Raimon and Epsilon's rivalry is actually on par with the likes of Karasuno versus Seijo. And Desarm gives them 10 days to train before they fight again. And then he casually kicks the ball at City, destroying levels of power, which rips through the entire team, including Fubuki. And we then get to see the most bullshit moment of the show. And the thing is, Inazuma 11 is filled with a lot of bullshit. We've seen a kid summon penguins, which we may or may not see again in a little bit, hint hint hint. We've also seen a kid summon a devil, and we've seen a kid use another kid as a baseball bat. And despite all of that bullshit, I can assure you that you are not prepared for the bullshit you're going to see. And that brings us to the end of the game, where we are given not 1, not 3, but 4 amazing pieces of foreshadowing for what's to come in the rest of the series, starting with this scene with Fubuki. I'm sure that won't be incredibly important later on, so let's move on to the second piece, which is probably the most subtle one, and it's actually Kazamaru's reaction to Fubuki's crash out. And the third is this scene with Desarm. And you might be confused now, but when these pieces come together, we are going to be cooking something good. And the final piece is Kira looking at this mysterious kid who's watching over the game, who then says hi to Endo when he's on his own before literally disappearing into thin air.
What?
And if you thought that was confusing, you have no idea what's about to happen in our next game, because Kira gets a text that says, "Get this, Kageyama is back." Okay, look, if you're unfamiliar with Kageyama, he was the commander of Royal Academy, the team that beat Raimon 20-1.
20-1, look at the time, it's 20-1.
Now, as crazy as that scoreline is, that's actually pretty tame compared to everything else he did, because he's also the guy that severely injured the original Inazuma 11, leaving them crippled and never able to play professionally again. And then he killed Endo's granddad and put Goenji's little sister in a coma, so he would miss his match against Royal Academy. And not only that, but he also cut the brakes on the Raimon team bus, tried to kill them with giant metal girders, and created a team of gods using literal steroids. And the mere mention of his name made this man pee himself. So yeah, he's pretty badass. I mean, bad news. Yeah, bad news. But what does he even want now that he's broken out of prison? Well, to find out, the team end up meeting this kid who has a head tattoo at 13 years of age. And the first thing he does is assault Endo with a football. And do you know what Raimon do? They let him on the goddamn bus. These idiots have zero survival instincts. And then this kid deadass starts giving them directions like,
in 300 yards, turn left at the traffic lights.
And he brings them to the harbor where there's a literal submarine warship waiting for them. This man was imprisoned. How did he even get hold of this thing and stick his branding all over it? Like, you know shit is crazy when even Kira is shocked. This woman shows emotion once every other month. But that's besides the point, because what does Kageyama even want? A reunion. And I'm actually dead serious, because it turns out that Kiddo's old teammates are working for him again, and they're not too happy with Kiddo. And I can't really disagree. Let me remind you that this kid's team got slaughtered by Zeus, were left severely injured, and were knocked out of the football frontier. And you know what he did? He joined his rival's team, changing his whole drip just so he could get revenge on Zeus, and after winning the football frontier for his rivals, he just stayed at Raimon. That's like Salah joining United to beat City and then just ending his career there. Do you know how crazy that would be? I deadass stopped watching football. So yeah, I can't exactly blame these two for wanting revenge on Kiddo. In fact, you know what? Screw this kid. Naturally, Kiddo still doesn't want his old teammates working for Kageyama of all people, so the solution is the same as it always is in this show. They're gonna play each other in a football match. Can you imagine if real life disputes were settled over matches of football? America would really be in the mud. But I'm getting carried away because Sakuma reveals something pretty saucy. And if you're wondering what that secret plan is, you're about to find out in our next game as we get the lore drop of the century, because...
Hang on a second.
What?
Are you seriously not going to mention the clown?
I mean, I don't think he's any weirder than the girl that's wrapped her hair around her face.
You know what? Fair enough.
Anyway, like I was saying before I was so rudely wait a minute. Did he just blink? I thought the eye was painted onto the eye patch. Why is he even wearing an eye patch if his eye is perfectly fine? You know what? I don't care. We've waited long enough. It's time to see another iconic special move. That's right, in season 1 we had Emperor Penguin number 2, and the reason it was called number 2 is because there was actually a number 1 that was first invented but was quickly forbidden because it caused the user massive damage. In fact, using it 3 times meant they would never be able to play football again. And let's not lie, that is some pretty great lore, because we're first introduced to the improved version of the shot, which reduced the impact on the person's body by involving 2 extra kickers but results in less power. And it's only after that they introduce the original version. But that's that's not even the most important thing here. That is actually Endo being an absolute idiot again and using God Hand. Need I remind you that Emperor Penguin was specifically designed to break through God Hand. In fact, the weaker Emperor Penguin number 2 cracked God Hand pretty easily. So what made this dumbass think he could stop this shot without using Margin in the hand? He is so lucky he is the most wholesome and endearing character in the show. And I've actually planned the entire climax of this video around Endo. There's a reason I glaze him in almost every video I make about Inazuma 11, but my god is his move selection IQ some of the worst out there. And now Raimon have 3 problems. The first is that if Sakuma uses that shot 2 more times, bro is gonna have to hang up his boots and start learning Arabic because his football career is over. The second is that if Endo faces that move again, he's gonna end up in a wheelchair. And I mentioned there was a third, right? Well, let me just show you what that is. Yep, this absolute Chad, I mean monster, has these kids using yet another forbidden move. So not only do Raimon have to make sure Sakuma doesn't score, they can't even score themselves. And that's what gives Royal Academy the opening they need, where Fudo steals the ball and we deadass get to see some of the nastiest footwork I've seen in a minute. I'm like 60% sure that Rin vs Sai scene was inspired by this, because the animation is so surprisingly fluid. And wait a minute, what the hell is that? Probably nothing important. So let's move on to halftime, where the coach basically tells them, you little shits, I'm here to win. I don't give a shit what happens to the other team. Do I look like a little bitch? So anyway, Fubuki joins the attack, and you already know bro is about to cook a full 5-course meal when his eyes turn orange, because he deadass just charges through a slide tackle like it's nothing. But the problem still remains that they can't afford to let this guy use Beast Fang again, so their solution is to bloody chain Wyvern Crash with Eternal Blizzard. And I'm not gonna lie, this shit is so fire. Now we see Fudo here realizing that Fubuki and Somioka are a problem, and I'm gonna be honest, I think they're a better partnership than Goenji and Somioka, and if you don't agree with that, then that's fine, but the point is, what do you do when you're faced with someone that's just levels above? Well, I need you to think back to the 17-18 Champions League final where Ramos straight up RKO'd Salah, because that's pretty much what Fudo does to Somioka, and do my eyes deceive me? Because this is the first time I've ever seen someone handed a card in this show. And Somioka isn't the only one with the broken leg, because Sakuma decides that walking is for pussies and uses Emperor Penguin again. And would you look at that, Endo uses the correct move for once and actually stops it. Oh wow, I never expected that to happen. Okay look, I don't even have time to hate on this kid because Sakuma is basically dying after using that move twice, but he doesn't give a shit because he finally has the power to surpass Kiddo. And oh hey, I wonder why they panned the camera over to Kazamaru. You think that means anything? No, it's probably nothing. Anyway, Sakuma uses Emperor Penguin for a 3rd time and he basically dies and the game ends as a draw. And just so we're on the same page, this man, after everything he did in season 1, some of which would probably be actual war crimes, he then almost causes this guy to break his hands, pretty much kills this kid, breaks this kid's leg, and then he just blows up the football pitch. And after all of that, he gives us another iconic line. And the best part about this line is that it pays off all the way in season 3. And I've still got 2 more videos to make for season 2 before getting to season 3. So if you don't want to miss any of it, be sure to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100k subs by the end of the year and I won't be able to do it without your help. Please subscribe. But getting back to the video, we've still got 2 more games to talk about. And even though the Epsilon match is everyone's favorite, I personally love the next game even more. And you'll see why in a bit. But first, it's important to mention that Kira kicked Somioka off the team. And look, I get it. A lot of people don't like Kira, but she's still one of my favorite characters and I think she's completely justified because his leg is literally broken, so what's the point in keeping him around? But for some reason, the other smart asses in the team think they know better, so Kazamaru has to step in. Well said, Kazamaru. I'm sure none of this will bite us in the back later. In fact, screw it, let's go to an amusement park. Now, we're not just here for shits and giggles. This is actually my favorite part of the games because Endo is able to go on a date with one of the 4 girls and they all have these cute little events that occur. But the main reason the team is here is because we found intel that Alias have a base here somewhere. How do we know that? I don't know. But we get to see Fubuki raising up more shorties and I really think these guys need to stop acting so surprised whenever this happens. Like deadass, even Kira is surprised. They need to understand that Fubuki is him. him. He even raises up 2 more girls. That's a total of 8 without even trying. But he's not the only one, because Ichinose gets literally kidnapped by this girl named Rika, who wants to marry him and turn him into a house husband. And I'ma be real with you guys, if I could live with 2 baddies in Osaka and I get to spend my time running the family restaurant whilst basically living in paradise instead of risking my life fighting literal aliens that can destroy buildings with a single kick, I'm gonna choose the first option every time. But unfortunately, my boy needs to find a way to escape, and the only way he can do that is if Raimon beat Rika's football team, who are all girls. I really wonder why there's so many more female players in this season. It's almost as if the games were slowly trying to appeal to a wider demographic. And they're actually low-key techie as hell, because first of all, do you know how hard it is to do flips like this? Now imagine doing it with a literal football, except you don't need to imagine it because we literally see her get past Kazamaru with ease. May I remind you that he's the second fastest player at Raimon behind Fubuki. And not only that, but we get to see this special move. And you might be going, okay, that's cute and all, but there's no way that shit gets past Endo. Even if he pulls some of his bullshit and uses a stupid move, he should still be able to stop it, right? Well...
Please.
Fortunately, Fubuki's pronouns are I'm him for a reason, and he deadass shows these girls no mercy as he equalizes by freezing the goal again. It really makes you wonder if they sort of just wait around for the ice to melt before starting the game again. And honestly, even if this game is just for gags, it low-key ends up being pretty important to the plot. But we'll get to that later because there's so many cool things that happen in it, like Rika literally jumping over the wall, which is the first time we've ever seen Kabiyama be beaten in that manner. But the real highlight is watching Ichinose quite literally become Messi. And I don't just mean any Messi, I mean prime 2012 Messi, where he scored 91 goals in a year, because bro destroys the entire team and scores the winner with his new special move. But then that raises the question, how are the girls so good? And no, I'm not saying that because they're girls. I'm saying that because they kept pace with the team that won the Football Frontier and then defeated another team of aliens. And the answer is actually really amazing and ties into the final game against Epsilon, because Rika and her team have been training in an abandoned alias training facility. So obviously, Raimon begin training and it goes really well for all of them, besides one. Can you guess who it is? Probably the guy that's literally pretending to talk to his op while he's taking shots at a robot. This guy got in his head so bad, bro is losing his head more than he already has. And if you don't know what I mean by that, let me just show you. Now you might think this is weird as hell, and let's be honest, it really is. But they're literally at the end of their 10 days of training, and they'll be playing against Epsilon tomorrow for the fate of the entire country. So I mean, wouldn't you be crashing out too? Besides, Fubuki isn't the only one staying up all night, because Kiddo notices that Haruna is also awake and suggests that they go for a walk. And I swear to God, you guys better fully focus on this, because I genuinely think we are about to see some cinema. And I absolutely love the scenes where we get to see the 2 siblings actually getting to be siblings. I think something a lot of people miss here is that yes, they're siblings and they're obviously close, but they're also orphans that have spent their childhoods with different parents. So they really haven't had the chance to spend much time together as brother and sister. And that's what makes this so damn sweet. And it only gets better because Kiddo knows exactly what's on Haruna's mind without even needing to be told. And that's the fact that she's worried about Kogure, because just like the 2 of them, he's also an orphan. So it's only natural that Haruna understands how Kogure feels, leading to a flashback that genuinely brought a tear to my eye. Haruna says that she thought her parents betrayed her, and without having Kiddo there for her, she probably would have ended up just like Kogure. And that's what leads to what I genuinely believe is one of the best scenes in all of Inazuma 11. And it doesn't just involve brilliant writing, but also some great voice acting too. Because whilst Haruna is having these thoughts, Kiddo doesn't even let her finish her sentence as he chimes in with this.
俺とは違ってこのライモンで一人で負けずにやってきた。お前は強い人間だ。俺なんかよりずっとな。
And when the genius playmaker of 2 of the best teams in the country says that to you, you just know you're built different. But in all seriousness, I absolutely adore this moment between the pair of them, because not only is it incredibly touching, but it gets even better. And once again, I won't even say anything. Just watch this.
そろそろ戻ろう。
私、もう少しここにいる。お兄ちゃん、先に戻って。
一人で いや、わかった。
And that brings us to the end of the 10 days, which means it's time for Raimon to play Epsilon and the entire country is watching. And for once, there isn't a school on the line. It's just the fate of the entire planet, so no pressure. Oh yeah, and Rika joins Raimon because let's face it, Megan is ass. Epsilon start off by literally raining meteors down on Raimon before Goku takes a shot, and this time Endo is actually able to stop it with Majin in the hand. So I guess that means their training actually worked. So now it's just a matter of whether or not they can score. And they actually use a pretty clever tactic to get to the goal, where Rika fakes using her shot only to pass it to Ichinose, who uses twin boost with Kiddo, and Desarm catches it with ease. But, look at this. Yep, that's how desperate we are now. We are so screwed. But guess what? Desarm loves it.
最高だ。
Now it's worth mentioning that Fubuki was told to stay in defense, but one look at Desarm is enough to make him crash out as he screws his coach's orders and takes a shot, forcing Desarm to actually use a special move. And the thing is, without Somioka, Fubuki is the only one who even has a chance at scoring because Desarm literally slaps away every other shot like an Asian mother. But asking the guy to play defense, bring the ball up by himself and take the shot is a bit much. But then again, it's not like they have a choice because compared to Fubuki, the rest of Raimon are straight bums. And that brings us to halftime where Kira tells Fubuki to stay in defense and Kiddo complains that they won't be able to score without him. And Rika is all like, what about me? Girl, look, this ain't the time, the adults are talking. Actually, if we're being honest, Fubuki isn't even listening because my boy Desarm is living rent-free in his head. In fact, he deadass triggers a flashback on Fubuki's behalf. And I swear to God, this is the craziest shit ever, even for this stupid show. You see, Fubuki Shiro was always a defender. The striker was actually his twin brother, Fubuki Atsuya. The pair always argued about whose position was more important, so their parents told them that it doesn't matter because when they're together, they're perfect. And this actually goes on to become the theme for Fubuki's character because not only does it cause him immense conflict over the next few episodes, but it pays off in an absolutely amazing scene when Raimon end up playing a certain other team that I won't spoil. But the question still remains as to what happened to Atsuya. Well, they all died in an avalanche at the end. Now I know what you're thinking, Fubuki's adopted his brother's personality and he has both identities living in his body. That actually is a realistic response to trauma and is honestly something we've not seen in many other anime. But why does his hair and eye color change? I don't know, okay? Why do MHA fans keep trying to ship Deku and Bakugo? There are some things in this world that just don't make sense. And it's clear Fubuki is having some trouble with his brother because his personality keeps trying to come out. But is that really such a bad thing? Because every time he does come out, Raimon usually ends up scoring. Unfortunately, Fubuki is so caught up in trying to score that it gives Epsilon the opening they need to use their most powerful move. And if you're wondering if Endo is able to stop it, don't even bother because bro doesn't even get the chance. Now I've given Endo a lot of shit in this video, but make no mistake, Endo Mamoru is the best character in Inazuma 11 and the greatest example of a leader you'll ever see. Because after Kogure's mistake, he's undeniably upset at himself. We've seen him lack confidence in his own abilities since his very first game with Raimon. Now I won't get into how that most certainly stems from being abandoned as a child because I know you guys don't give a shit about that sort of stuff. Seriously, my retention deadass dips each time I offer even the slightest bit of analysis. But I do need to mention that even then, Kogure was lucky he had Haruna in his corner through it all. But make no mistake, he's even luckier he's playing for a team whose captain is Endo because we get this scene.
時間はまだあるぞ。気にすんな。走り続ければなんとかなる。
That's it. 3 lines. 3 lines is all it takes for him to not only give Kogure his confidence back, but he lifts up his entire team because that's exactly the kind of person he is. And it's because of Endo that Raimon are able to improve so much because when he's behind them, they don't even think about losing. They can give it their all knowing that they have the best goalkeeper and the best captain guarding their goal. And Raimon's improvement even rubs off on Desarm.
そうだ、魂と魂のぶつかり合い。それが私の求めていたものだ。
Unfortunately, one person that Endo hasn't been able to get through to is Fubuki because all he can think about is being perfect and beating the enemy in front of him. And this just goes to show how amazing of an antagonist Desarm is because he has an even greater impact on Raimon than Endo does, which is absolutely crazy to think about. In fact, Fubuki goes on one last rampage where he steals the ball from his own teammates and unleashes his most powerful Eternal Blizzard yet. The only question is if it's strong enough to break through Desarm's wormhole. I don't don't know why these two-faced dickheads are celebrating when they were complaining just a few seconds ago. But the game isn't even close to over yet because it's Epsilon's turn to attack, and they use their most powerful move once again. And with the score at 1-1 and only a few minutes left on the clock, Endo has to stop this or they lose. And this shot is even more powerful than last time because Raimon have risen up to match Desarm, and his team have responded in kind by giving it their all in their Gaia break. And that's what brings me back to another scene which happens a little bit before this game but is so important to the entirety of the plot and these characters, and it really goes to show why Inazuma 11 is the kind of anime we can't help but keep in our hearts even all these years after first watching it on TV as kids. You see, Aki wonders what the Alias players must be feeling when they play football. She says that they probably don't understand what's in the Raimon players' hearts, and that's why Raimon have to go through so much pain while playing them. And that's just not how football should be, is it? After all, football is supposed to be fun, right? Well, Endo's response to that is just the greatest thing ever, and it ends up being another one of those small scenes that defines the entire show.
あいつらも本当はサッカーが好きで楽しいって感じてるんじゃないかって。どんな悪いやつだとしても好きじゃなきゃあんなすごいサッカーできるわけないからさ。
And Endo does go on to stop Gaia Break using a new version of Martian the Hand. And I absolutely love how the show didn't just pull out a new move from nowhere, but improved on an existing one. And the best part about all of this is that the Epsilon players are actually hyped up as hell. And that really highlights the difference between Gemini Storm and Epsilon. And that difference comes down to Desarm not only being an absolutely amazing antagonist for Raimon, but also a great captain for his own team. And it's because of him that Fubuki improved his Eternal Blizzard so much. And so when he uses it one last time to potentially score the winner, you'd think that it would go in and Raimon would win the game. That's right, this entire time, bro had an even stronger special move that he was just casually not using because where would be the fun in that? And with that, the game comes to an end, and as you can see, Fubuki ain't too happy about it. But this rivalry is only just getting started because Raimon will play Epsilon one more time in what is one of the two best games of Season 2. But if you want to watch the best game from Season 1, click on the video on the left. It's my most viewed Inazuma 11 video for a reason, and I'm sure you'll love it. Thanks for watching.